When we are young, we tend to think in terms of black or white. There's very little gray in our perspective. As time goes on, however, our experience with real life often introduces a growing awareness of a gap between the real and the ideal, between what is and what ought to be. We first see this gap when we realize that some things about ourselves or about other people or about what we've been taught are not what we thought they were. Such experiences can produce an unsettling sense of uncertainty. Let's talk about how to deal with that uncertainty. Let's call the early stages of idealism stage 1. Those in stage 1 don't see a gap. They somehow filter out any perception of the differences between the real and the ideal. When we focus only on the ideal while blocking out the real, our faith can be both blind and shallow, because it lacks awareness and careful thought. If we don't grapple with the frustration that comes from facing bravely the uncertainties we encounter, we will lack the deep roots of spiritual maturity. If we don't see the problems that exist, we won't be able to help solve them. In stage 2, we see the gap between the real and the ideal, but this may cause us to struggle with conflicts and uncertainty. Despite the value of becoming aware of complexity, skepticism may become not just a helpful tool, but a guiding philosophy. A person viewing life only from the perspective of complexity will often eliminate his or her upward view of the ideal and focus exclusively on the real. The ability to acknowledge ambiguity, an important step in our spiritual development, is not a final form of enlightenment. It is only the beginning. The best response to the gap of uncertainty is to keep growing into stage 3, where we don't just see the real and the ideal, we also hold on to each perspective with eyes and hearts wide open. We're able to learn to receive complex answers from the Lord, but also to give Him the benefit of the doubt about our unanswered questions. Stage 3 has a settled and informed perspective that has been tempered and tested by time and experience. The choice to be believing at this stage is very different from mere blind obedience. It is, rather, a knowing and trusting kind of obedience. Instead of asking us to put aside the tools of an educated, critical mind, this attitude invites us to use those tools, coupling them with our confidence in the ideal, so we can improve the status quo, not just criticize it. Call it informed faith. Ultimately, as we nourish the seed of faith, it will grow deep roots that will eventually produce fruit, the reward for our humility, diligence, and long-suffering. Our work to understand and to deal constructively with the gap helps us to progress. It also helps us to know our heavenly parents and Jesus Christ and to have a close relationship with them. Our effort helps us become like them, to love as they do, and to experience deep, eternal joy. Everything on the Faith is Not Blind website is designed to help you more fully understand and apply this pattern in practical ways. It is full of examples of people who have discovered the nuance and the joy of a stage 3 perspective through their own varied experiences. The stories in the podcasts, the blog, the essays, and the return narratives come from real people who have personally learned to navigate the distance between the ideal and the real. And their stories can teach you how to do the same.